Hello, this is Mama Mavel here, also known as Velma. And today I'm going to talk about stay listening and video games. So I've got a little presentation. I'm going to bring that up. I'm going to share my screen and talk through a few slides. So the biggest question that I have come up against, one of the biggest, is like, why do they get so upset? It's just a game, right? So it makes sense to me now why they get so upset, but I didn't used to understand. So my goal today is to help you understand why they get so upset and then how to help them when they do get upset. So I'm going to talk about the importance of gaming, some of the reasons kids cry over video games, and what is the basics of stay listening. So a little bit about me. I uh, have a 14-year-old son. He turned 14 yesterday. And I have two dogs, seven cats. I live in the country in Missouri. My favorite game is currently Hollow Knight, not Minecraft. And I am a hand-in-hand parenting certified instructor. So, why do kids cry over video games? Why do we even ask that question? Because a lot of people, a lot of parents don't understand that playing a video game is just as valid a form of play as every other form of play that's out there. That all the play that we grow up with, playing house, playing um, tag, playing with water guns, like all of that is play, just like playing Minecraft is play. So, with that as our foundation, um, we're going to look at why video games. So what is unique about video games, um, and how and the role they play in our kids' lives. So I just also want to say welcome to Karen. Thank you for getting here. I just started, so you haven't really missed anything, and we're going to talk about why video games are important to our kids, why they get upset over video games sometimes, and what stay listening is and how that can be useful. So, why video games? Video games are like other forms of play, are stress relief. They build confidence, they build connection, and they're really fun. The fun part is obvious, but oftentimes the connection and the confidence part aren't as obvious around video games. I know that for my kid, his friends, the main thing that they do together is play video games. So that is his social connection is through video games. That's why it's so important to him. One of the biggest reasons why video games are so important to him. It's also a form of stress relief. He's say he's had a really hard day of school. He's neurodivergent. He some things are really challenging for him, but he comes home and he gets his chores done, he gets his homework done, and then he's able to play a video game and be competent at it. It's like, oh, I can do this. And it gives him a sense of like a clean thing for his brain to do, and it gives him a sense of confidence in himself. So video games play a lot of different roles for our kids, and um, they're important. So when you have that background, it makes sense that kids would cry over video games. Um, so, and these are just a few of the reasons that kids may cry over video games. One of them, obvious ones, is that they got lost. They just lost that level, or they lost that game, or they lost. all of their stuff, or they just died, or they have to start over. That's just like playing any game. Sometimes when you lose, you're upset. And the interesting thing about video games is that video games are about losing. They're not about winning. They're about losing and being able to start over. So all of the feelings that a kid has when they lose are actually really important for building their resilience. Because when they're feel those feelings and then they're like, okay, they get all of that out and they're like, oh, okay, I can go back now. So I've seen that grow in my kid. Um, so another reason kids get upset over video games is that no one will play with me. And that's just like on the playground or just like in the neighborhood or just like at a party or in school or at recess. Video games are social. And if their peers or their friends don't want to play video games with them, that's upsetting for them. It's a break in their connection. And so I like to think of their upsets around that social isolate, like that social break, just like if he were nobody wanted to play with him on the playground at school. Like how would I listen to him then? So having some empathy there. Well, okay, now this is a big one. One of the biggest reasons why kids get upset and cry over video games is that they have to stop playing the video game. And there so much to go into about this. And I would like to say that like I've done a couple of webinars and talks on setting limits in video games and stopping playing video games and ending video games easily. And those are some really great resources. So I'm not going to cover everything in detail here, but I will say that like it is hard to stop playing a video game. Video games are also designed to be hard to end. And if we don't understand some of the basics about video games and how to support our kids in building the muscle and the skill at ending video games, we have often I have come in too harshly and gone like, okay, time to stop. And that's upsetting to him. I like to say it's like having somebody come in and unplug the TV when you're 5 minutes before the end of your favorite like episode on TV, your favorite like show on TV or Netflix. It's like really it can be really disconcerting and rightly upsetting. Um, and then there are other reasons why they get upset when when it ends, but like that's a big one that we can offer and learn about, offer support for and learn about. And then um, I put broken cookie on here because sometimes our kids are so easily able to do all the hard things and they're like they can lose all their stuff, they can lose a level, their friends won't play with them, and it doesn't phase them at all and they keep going. And sometimes the littlest thing will be really upsetting. And I like that we in hand we talk about that as the broken cookie. It's like the last straw, the last thing on the stack that like just makes it too much. So in some ways, when kids cry over video games, they're not crying about the video game at all. They're just that's a convenient trigger almost for all of the other things that have been upsetting for them over the day. So uh, that's just a few of the reasons kids cry about video games. And so this is I probably should have put this slide before that last slide, now that I think about it, because this is what I was referring to about the when they have to stop that like way of something ending too quickly, this is what we can do. We can give video games respect and recognize their importance in our kids' lives and learn about them. And the more we learn about our games, the more we connect with our kids about their gaming, the easier it all goes and the less upset there is. So here's a few of the additional resources that I mentioned. I just put these in here, and I will link to these in the email that goes out as a follow-up after this call. So you don't have to remember them. They'll just be there. Um, So then now we get into the meat and potatoes of this. What is stay listening? So first, I want to say that stay listening is a hand-in-hand parenting tool. There are 5 hand-in-hand parenting tools: stay listening, play listening, special time, setting limits, and listening time. And all of the tools are designed to build connection with our kids by primarily listening to them. Like listening is in nearly all of the tool names because our we as humans are wired for connection. And so these tools are simple ways to help us strengthen the connection between ourselves and our kids. So what is stay listening? Stay listening is based on the idea that crying is a natural recovery process. When we are upset about something, when like we're feeling gunked up, when we're feeling stressed, crying and tears release those stress hormones in our system and help us feel better. So I know it works for me. Had a good cry this morning. It really helped. Um, and I had a listener, so somebody who was listening to me, which really, really helped. So that also works for our kids. So when our kids are upset, we have the opportunity when they're crying to give them loving, compassionate space. So in an ideal world, it means listening all the way through our child's upset. And and I want to say here that we as parents m- have a lot of demands on us. And we may not have the half an hour, the 45 minutes, that even the 10 minutes that it may take for our kid to get all the way through their upset. Um, and that's okay. We start with where we are. And I'll come back to this in a few minutes. But the next the next thing I want to say is that like wherever our kid is, we want to meet them with an open heart and we want to stay with them as they recover. And what that looks like, what does this even look like? It looks like being present and warm and ideally not being rushed. Like if my kid's upset, I will like check in with myself and go, okay, how much do I have? I can do this for like 10, 15 minutes. I don't, or I'm like, hey, I need to go turn off the stove and then I'm going to come back and hang out with you because I don't want you to be alone when you're upset. So I do what I can to make space for myself and my kids so that I can be patient and present and warm with him while he's there. I also we want to be comforting. This looks like being comforting while not talking a whole lot. We want to say, "Oh, I see this is really hard. I see you're having a really hard time." The more words I say, the more my kid gets upset. So I really have learned that like primarily all I need to do is sit there and just like occasionally like put my hand on his back. Um, it so this is an invitation to experiment with what works for your kid. But it's phrases like, "Yeah, I don't want you to be alone while you're having a hard time." Or Wow, I see that you're really sad. Um, and then another way that it can look is acknowledging it with while not fixing it. This one's really subtle and really important. Uh, and it looks like, oh, I see you really wanted to keep playing. Well, and it's still time to stop. That gets into some of the setting limits, but like setting limits and stay listening often go very closely together. But it not fixing it is a really core part of that. As I know my with my upbringing and my defaults, I want to fix everything and make everything okay so that he doesn't have an upset. And that's not always very useful. So the idea here is to just, oh, I see that you lost. Yeah, that sucks. So that's just a sampling of what it can look like. So then the next question that it comes like circled in my mind and still does sometimes is, does this ever end? Will he ever get over being upset about X, Y, or Z? Will ending ever be easy? Will will he ever stop being upset that he lost or that this broke? And the answer is yes, it will stop eventually. And something else will come up and there'll be a different thing for him to be upset about. But like the tears don't go on forever. And what's on the other side of the tears is really, really worth it. I have seen my kid over the years recover so beautifully, and his recovery time has gotten quicker and quicker and quicker. And things that used to upset him for hours and days are now only upsetting for 10, 15 minutes or just a few minutes and sometimes not at all. He's like, "Oh, okay." And like, I guess I'll do this. So I put this in here to offer hope, to offer kind of that light at the end of the tunnel, because sometimes when you're in the middle of the tunnel, it can seem really, really long and really, really dark. And lastly, like, what if I just can't listen to my kid right now? Because sometimes we just can't listen to our kids right now. Sometimes we're too tired. Sometimes we have too many deadlines. Sometimes if we don't deal with what's happening in the kitchen, dinner will burn and there will be nothing to eat. Like sometimes that just happens. It's just reality. It's just lifing us. So for those, so I put this in here because I'm like, it's okay. It's okay to be human. It's okay to not be able to do this perfectly all the time. And it's also, I'm offering an invitation to get support for yourself, to build capacity for yourself. So this is a quote from Patty that I really love. Patty Whitfler, the founder of Hand in Hand Parenting. It says, to gather the patience to play and listen, we parents need help. We want to be patient, but we too have a load of stress to cope with. Ask a partner or a friend to listen to you while you talk about how things are for you as a parent. And that is essentially the nature of listening time, which will be next month's um, topic, listening time and video games. So this is just an invitation to to be patient with yourself, to be loving with yourself, and to get support for yourself in addition to giving support to your kid. So that's what I've got on Stay Listening and video games. And I would love to hear any questions or comments or any of your own experience. I'm going to stop the share.
I do find that what you said is true about my son. Like, if I even try to comfort him, don't touch me. He'll try to kick me if I even get close to him. It doesn't matter what I say, he doesn't want to hear it. I mean, nothing, not even like, I'm here for you. He'll just be like, "Ah, I don't even want you here," like that kind of a thing. So, and I know that we have not handled it right all the time because there's a lot of times where I've been like, this is a video game that you're crying about. Like, and
Yeah.
I feel bad. And then, especially lately, I just have a lot going on at work that's very, very
Mhm.
stressful, and I do not have any patience. And I feel
Yeah.
very guilty about that. And I want to change it, but I can't like force those feelings away. And I don't know how
Yeah.
to. So
Yeah. Well, uh, thank you for sharing. And I just want to normalize and validate all of that. You cannot, you cannot force those feelings away. That's not possible. And I know that when I have those feelings, I do my best to get extra support for myself with additional listening time with my listening partners, where I can like offload, talk, vent, scream, yell, cry about all the stuff that is so hard for me.
yeah. We do
And
practice a little bit of hand in hand, but we've never fully done
mhm,
everything. Like I don't have a listening partner or anything like that, but we have definitely tried some of the techniques and
mhm,
do find them to be helpful, but we've never made it like a lifestyle implementation. And also my partner and I are very different. Like when you mentioned
mhm,
like trying to fix everything, that's my partner because that's how I
yeah.
think they were more raised. And I was more raised with parents who are just like strict and we're just
Mhm,
like, no, this is the rules. And I don't want to be like that with my son either, but I don't also I've seen the other side of it trying like she hates when he cries. Like anytime he
yeah,
cries, she's like trying to make it better. And I'm just like, sometimes we need to let him cry. So I mean, we do
yeah,
compliment each other well, but yeah, sometimes we don't agree on that piece and then we'll have arguments about it. But
yeah. And that's also very normal.
yeah.
Parenting from different pages is kind of the definition of parenting most of the time for most people. And um, so it's great. I just want to celebrate that you two have a conversation about it. Like that you're able to do that is a huge win. So give yourselves
Yeah.
kudos for that and
And we both
recognizing that there are
try.
times.
We'll
Yeah.
try to do stuff and then it doesn't always last very long. Like, okay, reset, let's try again. Let's try again.
Yes. Yes. Experimentation.
Yep.
That is how we learn. We try things out and we figure out what works for our kid and for
But
us because it's
yeah,
not just about our kid, it's also about us and the reality of our life.
yeah. My son's also neurodivergent. So when you said
Mhm,
that, I was like, oh, we probably have a lot in common with that because and that's why we have such a hard time having like strict boundaries around it because we do know, like, if he doesn't have anybody to play with, which sometimes he'll have
mhm.
up and down with friendships because he
Yeah.
just struggles with social areas.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't have anybody to play with, then if he comes home, am I supposed to just make him sit there and hang out with like we do somewhat. We're like, it's family night, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, but a lot of times
Yeah.
he really just wants to get on the video games and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. May I ask how old he is?
9.
Ah, okay. My kid just turned 14 and like we got like what I'm hearing you say reminds me of my younger kid.
Yeah.
Very, very, very much so. Um,
And that is what he likes
and
to do with his friends too. When they do come over, they do and
mhm,
like they're really good about like, okay, I'm gonna make a level for you and you have to beat it. And then, then he'll give it to them and see if they can beat it and they'll go back and forth. So it is definitely a social thing. And that's the
yeah.
other reason why we are open about letting him be on it quite a bit when he's
Mhm,
home. Because school
yeah.
is he hates school. And school is like just very exhausting, I think, to him.
Mhm,
So,
yeah. Yeah. School is not usually an ideal environment for kids in general, and especially our neurodivergent kids. It's a
mhm.
very challenging space for them. So, and I will say that like what I have learned over the last couple of years in exploring more and more about video games is that video games and neurodivergent communities have a special relationship that is actually really important. Like video games are a place where the rules are defined and you generally know what to expect. And there's um, fairly easy to understand ways of interacting and relating with other people. And that makes being social in the context of video games much easier for our neurodivergent kids. So
Mhm.
that's another nuance for why video games are important for some, especially important for some kids.
I would
Uh,
definitely agree with that.
yeah.
It's been his way to connect with other kids. And you said something that I was like, that really hit home, that it's something he can feel good about himself at because he's good at
Hmm.
them.
Yeah.
And whereas I think he's feeling a lot like at school and stuff, like I'm not good enough. The other kids think I'm mean. That's what he always tells me. They don't like me. They think I'm mean, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it's like kids are hard.
They are.
It's being social with kids while all the kids are learning is a really hard thing.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I just want to validate and normalize again all
Yeah.
of that. And um, have you ever have you tried playing video games with him?
I have played some of them. Like the one he really loves though, I can't because it like it moves across the screen and it makes me feel nauseous. So
Yeah.
I feel bad, but his most favorite game is one that I always tell him like I'll try for a few minutes and like, hon, I can't do this anymore. It's like I'm gonna be sick if I don't know how he does it because I always tell him like I don't know how it's going so fast across the screen that it's just for whatever reason gives me like a vertigo feeling. But we do like if he wants to play certain ones I'll try, or we'll definitely let him play with friends with it, or we'll try to incorporate it into other things like let's make a Geometry Dash book, or let's make that kind of thing. We'll try to, if I can't watch it, but I can do this, or sometimes I'll watch the YouTube videos of somebody else
Yes.
playing. He loves that too. Um,
Yes. So
yeah,
yes,
we try.
that's great. That is so awesome. That is exactly the right thing to be doing. And yeah, Geometry Dash. Oh, my kid gets into that
Oh,
occasionally,
does
and I'm
he?
like, yeah, it's like you like to build courses. And I'm like, I cannot do this. I can watch you do this, but I'm like, can we just play Minecraft?
Yeah, there you go. Yes, I know.
So,
That would probably be one I could handle looking at the screen. The Geometry Dash is hard, but that's the one he's really stuck on is Geometry Dash. So we let him
yeah.
do it, it's enjoyable to him, but we do try to, when we want him to get off, I'll usually will try to give him like a warning, like, hey, 15 more minutes. And then
Hmm.
when it gets to be the 15 minutes, he's still like not quite done. I'm like, okay, how much time do you need to finish this level? Like we try
Hmm.
to have him set the,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
or okay, the next time that you die, it's time to put it away.
Hmm.
Sometimes he'll still keep trying to push the limits and so sometimes we do have to say, like, if you don't put it away after we set it, then you will lose it for tomorrow. You will have minutes deducted off of it if you can't get off of it after the third time of like you've had
Yeah.
warnings, you've had like this. So if you
Hmm.
can't do it, then it's going to impede how much you get tomorrow, and you don't want
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah. So, yes to all of that. I have had all of those experiences, and I like, may I make a suggestion?
yes,
Offer an
please.
idea.
Because
So,
sometimes I feel like it's a consequence, and I know we're trying to teach him and we're not necessarily trying to penalize him, but at some point we're like left like he'll just keep going, ignoring us if we don't do some sort of
yeah, no, no, like consequences are not evil. Consequences are a version of limits. Like there are limits in life, and we all have to learn how to deal with those. So like, don't worry too much about that. Like, but going back to the giving him a 15-minute warning, one of the things that I found works well is to give him a before he gets on, I ask my
yes.
kid, how much time, or it's like, we have this much time. What is a good thing to do in that amount of time? And like help him. So part of it is helping him figure out like setting expectations and planning. And
Yes,
then when it gets time for the time to come off, go like, okay, there's 15 minutes left, just giving you a heads up. And then I often have come back and I'm like, okay, there's 5 minutes left. And I sit with him and I am with him and I am connecting with him and I am watching him and I am seeing what he's doing
that's a good idea.
to help ease that transition off so
Yeah,
that there's more of a bridge between the connection with the game and the connection with me and the rest of the world and the rest of the evening. So sometimes that can soften that work. And the reason that that works is because like ending a game is a skill. It is a muscle. It is designed to be really hard to do. So I think of myself as his coach, and like my coach wouldn't leave me at the hardest thing that I'm trying to learn how to do. So I'm there and I'm with him, and I'm like, sometimes it does take a, yeah, okay, the timer is off. Let's figure out, like, let's get to the next thing. Or at the 5 minutes, I'm like, okay, we have 5 minutes to wrap all of this up. What needs to happen to feel good about ending? It's like, do we need to get to a bench? Do we need to end this level? Do we need to die two more times?
right.
And Geometry Dash in particular is like my kid has often been like, "Oh, I just want to place one more thing right
Oh
here."
my gosh, that's exactly what he does.
Oh,
Mom, I just got to change the background. I just got to do this. It's
I
totally
know. I
educated.
just want to make that green. It needs to be green, not red.
Yep. I'll forget if I don't do it right now. I'll get that
Okay.
kind.
Yes. Okay. So for that one, grab a post-it.
Yes, I've told him we'll write it down.
I will write it down. Have
Yep.
post-its handy. It's like, okay, here's so you don't forget.
That's all good advice, and I'm glad. The thing about doing it beforehand has that is definitely key. I noticed with my son, if we talk about it beforehand, it's not 100%, but it is
Yeah.
usually a lot better if we. But a lot of times I will forget to do that, or in the rush of getting him off the bus, he runs right to that, and sometimes I'll have to be like, "Whoa, we're not getting on that yet. We have to talk." So
Yeah,
it is
great. Good
key.
job.
It is
It
key to
is.
try to get it ahead of time. That's like that's a good advice. And then I like the sitting with him. Like I haven't done that in them, and I think that one would be a really good one. I think
It
he would like that.
Yeah, yeah. So the if you wanted to do something else in addition to this talk today, I would suggest the mini course Game on Mom. It's
Okay.
free and it's about special time in video games and gives some really good suggestions for like context of video games, but also like how to implement special time with video games and what that can look like.
Okay.
And the one last thing I would want to say is that like it's great to sit at the end with the video game, like at the ending. And it's also good to just sit and take interest other times randomly when it's not the end. Because otherwise our kids are smart and they'll be like, "Oh, mom's coming in. It's time to stop now.
Right.
She's only
Yep.
sitting here so she can get
Me
like
off
me
of
off
it.
the screen."
My partner's a lot better about watching it with him and being more
Yeah.
interactive about that particular thing. She does a
Hmm.
lot more with that. So and he does
Cool.
enjoy that. So they connect a lot
Yeah.
with that. So he's at least
Yeah.
getting that connection from her. He and I, we have different stuff. Like
Yeah.
we walk together every morning, and because he has ADHD, so I always try to walk him. Like, okay, let's do a walk before school. He hates it, but when we're on the walk, he's fine. But he says he hates it every time before we go. But once we get out there, I'm just like, it's
Yeah.
important. We have to do this to sort of get your body in a so it can be calm when you're at school.
Yeah.
Sort of
Yeah.
like that
Well,
heavy work before school.
absolutely. I just like want to say you are doing brilliantly.
Thank you.
Okay?
I
You are
appreciate
doing a
that because
really
sometimes you
beautiful
do
job.
need to hear it. It's hard.
It is. It is
So
really
hard.
hard. It is really hard.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. I'm so glad you showed up and were able to
I
share with
appreciate.
me what's going
Thank
on.
you. All right, have a great day.
You too. Thank you very
Mm,
much.
Bye.
Bye.